these Roman priestesses used quartz crystals to draw down fire from heaven. And that was the only way you could light sacred flames. What we think about the most when we think about Vestal virgins, at least in popular culture, is this idea that they were virgins. They were seen as being married to Rome. A Vestal virgin, if she broke her vow of chastity, she could be punished. She could be buried alive. And that's what most people think about. And that's why people often think about Vesta as this idea of like chastity and sanctity. But I would really love to break that down, because when it comes to Vesta, we need to talk about the origin of the idea of a virgin and what it actually means.
Welcome to the Feminine Alchemy Podcast, where we explore the truth about the feminine, the peaceful, the wild, and the visceral. I'm your host, Jaye Anne Beringer, joined by my co-hosts, Julie Dean Richards and Kayelee Rose. Each week, we explore the deep mysteries of the feminine and help listeners apply them to their daily lives in a practical way. Join us to unlock the hidden wisdoms your soul has been waiting for.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Feminine Alchemy. I'm Jaye Anne, and we have Kayelee Rose and Julie Dean Richards on. I almost swapped your names. I almost said Kayelee Dean Richards and Julie Rose, and I was trying really hard to get it right. Say hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Wow. So we have an awesome, spicy, and a little fiery episode for you today. We're going to talk about Vesta, which I had in my mind thought she was a sit down and wait kind of person. And then you guys did the justice of reminding me that she literally represents fire, a single forever burning fire. And maybe I should remember that. So thank you. We're going to talk about cool stuff. But first, let's get into what's going on in our lives right now. As we're recording, so this is like August. So when it airs, things will be totally different. But and also therefore people like to know. It's like really, really important to share what we're dealing with and what we're working with and what's going on. Julia's giggling over there. I want to hear what you have to say.
It's so funny to me, because it's like, it's so important that people know about your lives. And I'm like, is it? The Scorpio rising in me is like, do people need to know anything about my life right now?
I relate.
That question as I was saying it. I was like, I don't know how to answer this question you're asking me telepathically, Julie. So I'm just going to keep committed to this. It's true.
Oh, I love it. It's great. I guess since I am talking, I will talk. And okay, actually, I decided to do this, which is kind of crazy because anything can happen between now and when this is released, whenever it's released. People might already know, but I have not officially announced on here that I am pregnant and having a baby.
Yeah! I was wondering when we were going to do this.
Oh, I was like, should I do this in some elaborate form? But I guess this is as good as any time to do it. By the time this airs, I'll be pretty close to the third trimester, probably, actually, which is crazy to think about right now, because this week I'm also flying out to Kaylee's house to help her with her birth, and the third, which she is in the fourth trimester, really, in her 10th month. So that will be a very cool experience for me. Besides that, like, that's the big life update for people who didn't already know. But yeah, we are now hit, by the time this goes, we'll have hit 30 states. We're at 28 right now, going on to 29 pretty quickly. I was in 3 states today, so that's exciting.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So before this podcast, been in 3 states, in Pennsylvania at this moment. And what has been lighting me up recently, Kayelee and I were literally just talking about this before the podcast, but decans. I'm all about decans, baby. I've been learning about them, and there's a lot more to decans than people think. It's not just rulership of a different thing. No. It's not. There's like a whole deity associated with it. There's a tarot card associated with each decan. There's like a mode associated with each decan. Anyway, people are going to be like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And that is okay because one day we will talk about this on our podcast. But I have been obsessed with the specificity that like decans provide and in my own life and how they make me scared of my life a little bit because of their specificity. So
Wow.
we'll have to talk about it soon. But yeah, it's exciting.
You have been mentioning in the second decade, in the third decade. I'm like, Julie, why are we talking about decans all of a sudden? I can't wait to hear about this more. What are you up to, Kayelee? What are you into?
What am I into? Well, as Julie mentioned, as we're recording, I am very close to the end of my pregnancy. By the time this airs, I will have a baby. I will definitely not be pregnant anymore. Thank goodness. But lots of preparation, preparing my house, preparing myself, preparing my bedroom. Because I prefer to birth at home. That's my favorite way to do it. So that's how this is going to go down. And it's been interesting to just observe the changes in myself, like the emotional and physical changes as I get closer and closer to the end. And just recognizing how this particular pregnancy has been this invitation over and over again to look at myself and realize like, okay, Kayelee, you talk about following your own inner knowing and you talk about intuition and you talk about being embodied. Now, are you living it? Like all the way? Like, are you really, really living it? Because if you're not, you better start. And just kind of this invitation to go even deeper into the work that I'm already doing and being reminded of some things like, oh, yeah, I don't have to hand my power away to other people. I have a lot of answers, if not all answers, inside of me. And I can check in with myself and all these really beautiful and sometimes kind of hard reminders of the work that we are doing on this podcast, things that we talk about, as well as Feminine Alchemist. And it's just been, I don't know, kind of fun to have all those reminders so very viscerally coming into my life. And then Julie's got me turned on to decans. I'm just like scouring the internet for information and almost all of it is lame. There's not very much out there for free access on the internet. So I'm going to go deeper and read books and all that jazz. But I keep feeling this pull as well to be more vocal, to be more outspoken about stuff relating to resonant astrology. So it's going to be fun when I come off of maternity leave to start going into that more, bringing it more to the world. And that's what I have going on right now.
Love that. Bringing more resonant astrology to the world. You know, I was thinking I've had a lot of really powerful interaction, the series directly. And the more and more I think about it, the more I feel into it. I'm like, yes, she rules Cancer. And I was like, how can I change my mentality so quickly around that? It's not that I didn't agree with you. Oh, that makes logical sense. But this is like, no, this feels true. This feels embodied. So it's been really interesting kind of playing with that for the last week.
I love that you're having that experience.
Yeah, I actually had this really great experience where like I do these meditations and it's like call on a safe person and I can never find one. I can never find a safe person because it's always like no human is always safe. And even with to a certain extent, like any deity figure, typically I have some sort of like, well, are you always safe though? Are you always safe? They call you God, but are you always safe? And but series, it was just like she was this like we were talking about this chubby little nourishing woman just kind of like came up to me and was like, here you go. And then I had all the fairies from Sleeping Beauty come and they were like flying around and I was like, oh, I finally feel safe.
That is so fantastic.
It was great. All these like plump little magical women.
I love that. I love it so much because you're like Princess Aurora. You're Sleeping Beauty in that, and like you're wearing pink today, which is so pretty.
I am. And you know what's really funny about that specific thing is when Facebook first came out, I was an early adopter. Yay, I'm so cool, whatever. But it was like you could have one line about me, and it was like, I will be Princess Aurora. That is my lifelong goal.
Oh my gosh.
It's just so funny.
I love that because you look like her to me. Like today with the pink, you look like Princess Aurora. And we just watched Sleeping Beauty with our kids
Oh, I will be.
literally just a little while ago. So I love that for you because you are so magical. Okay, so excited.
And nap times are super healing. So just saying, what else?
More
Take a
nap.
nap, guys.
I've
More
been taking
naps.
so many naps lately.
Good. You're in the weary stages of pregnancy. Naps are necessary.
Yes.
And it's like, I need to get to the next rest stop up these stairs. Where's base camp? Because I can't make it all the way.
That's right. I just wanted to sing to you guys. To the Princess Aurora, do, 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 hell to the Princess Aurora. Because now both of you are Disney princesses. We've talked about this. Kayelee is our resident
Yeah.
Disney princess, and now Jaye Anne is a Disney princess.
Woo!
So there you go, princesses. I bow to you. So cute. All right. Well, this is really fun for Vesta.
This is really fun. I'm very spicy today. I will say that much. So if I come off as aggressive, I apologize in advance because I'm aggressive. I apologize for any carnage.
Sing it, girlfriend. Sing it.
I would, but you did some excellent singing and I don't want to outshine you. Julie's dancing. A beautiful dance. I wish you could see this. Oh my gosh.
Okay, Vesta.
Let's
gotta get to Vesta.
cackling. We're cackling. It's part of the trope. And we have some cackle time. Yes. All right. So that's our life update, guys. I am really into actually being authentic instead of trying to be nice. So that's what I'm into.
The end.
What is going on with Vesta? What is a Vesta and how did she get here?
That sounds like a Kayelee question to me.
I'm looking forward to Kayelee answering that question. So the first thing we want to know is, what is this asteroid named Vesta? How long has she been around that we know? And what are some cool attributes? Because you had some fantastic insights on the astronomical stuff that dovetailed really well with the astrological stuff in the last two episodes. So tell us, Kayelee.
All right. I love how you phrase that. What is a Vesta? We're going to go into all things Vesta. Well, not all things, because it would take a really long time to go into all things Vesta. But we're going to cover a lot of ground today with some really fascinating things. Vesta is very intriguing and very nuanced and can be intense. But to speak to her astronomical significance, she is the second most massive body in the asteroid belt, so second only to Ceres. She was discovered in 1807, March 27th, it looks like, or 9th, by Heinrich Wilhelm Olbers. So a lot of these asteroid goddesses that we were talking about, they were discovered around similar times. And Vesta was the fourth one discovered. That's why frequently, if you look her up online, she'll have a 4. She'll be called number 4. Because she was the fourth. And she almost meets the classification for being a dwarf planet, like Ceres does, but she doesn't quite. But something that's really interesting about Vesta as an asteroid is that most asteroids are not differentiated. And what I mean by that is that they don't have layers. Like the Earth has a core, a mantle, and a crust. The asteroids don't, for the most part. Vesta, however, does. She has a core, she has a mantle, and she has a crust. She's also one of the only asteroid that you can see with the naked eye. She's very bright, which I love for so many reasons that we'll talk about later. But yeah, Julie, do you remember anything else I mentioned earlier?
So like the layers, I'm sorry, all I could hear when you said that she has layers is ogres are like onions. They have layers. Vesta has layers. Like, do we know, like you said with, I think Ceres has water in the middle. Do we know what's inside? What's in the layers? What's at the nougaty core of Vesta?
I don't know. They might know.
Maybe they don't
All I know is
know.
that she has denser material in the middle. That's all I know.
I mean, after all, like, it's amazing we know any of this stuff at all in the first place. P.S. We don't, like, know what's going on under the ocean, but we definitely know what's going on in space.
Right. But yeah, that's the most important. Well, to me, it seemed the most important information I came across astronomically.
Really good.
Yeah, that differentiation piece is really important in multiple ways, but when we talk about her mythology, it'll be really lovely. It's a great dovetail into all of this, so I'm excited.
Let's talk about her mythology now. Why is Vesta a spicy lady?
Well, there's a lot of things I have to say about Vesta. This is what we'll do because we need to keep it clear and clean so people understand. So I'm going to tell you who she was first, kind of like we usually do. Like, what's the usual stuff that you know about Vesta? And then we'll dissect it more into, okay, what's the stuff they're not telling you? Like, what is the deeper stuff here? So Vesta is the equivalent of Hestia. That's where she comes from. Hestia is the Greek goddess. She's the goddess of the hearth. And it's so fascinating that we talked about the differentiation because she was seen as coming from and that she lived at the center of the earth. And that at the center of the earth, there was a burning flame where all this life came from. That's why her, Hestia especially, but Vesta as well, is related to the hearth, the home, and the mantle. So when you talk about the mantle, it's so interesting that we use this wording even when we're differentiating. We're talking about the earth, the crust, the mantle, the core, right? That's partially because that's where they're from. So when we talk about hearth and home, we have to think about what was the center of daily life, really, for most people. Well, it's going to be your hearth because that's where the fire is, that's where food is cooked. Just like now we say, like, the kitchen is the heart of the home, right? Same deal, right? The mantle and the hearth are the heart of the home. And so she had a lot to do with this idea. This is partially where this hospitality streak comes through in her, of like taking care and like burning the fire to make, lovely dishes and being in the heart and burning in your heart. So when we talk about like the Vestal virgins, or the word Vesta, going a little bit away from the Greek, that comes from these Vestal virgins who had a flame that would burn in the temple, and that flame had to be kept alive 24/7. So the flame could never go out. And these specific women, the Vestal virgins, especially in Rome, that's what they were called, the Vestal virgins, had to keep this flame alive. And it's really interesting because these Roman priestesses used quartz crystals to do that. So they would use quartz crystals to draw down fire from heaven. So they used quartz to draw down the fire from heaven, and that was the only way you could light sacred flames. And they would attend to these. And so what is drawn to, what we think about the most when we think about Vestal virgins, at least in like, popular culture, the way that things are expressed, is this idea that they were virgins. They were seen as being married to Rome. So like another one of their names, Amata, meant beloved. She's like the beloved of Rome, and they were given to Rome as like married to Rome itself because they're the center of everything. They're the heart of Rome. And so what people are, they're famous for lots of times is that a Vestal virgin, if she broke her vow of chastity, she could be punished. She could be buried alive. All these terrible things could happen to her. And that's what most people think about. And that's why people often think about Vesta as this idea of like chastity and sanctity and all those pieces. But I'm going to let Kayelee talk, but I would really love to break that down because when it comes to Vesta, we need to talk about the origin of the idea of a virgin and what it actually means, because it doesn't always mean what we think it means. So, Kayelee, do you have other stuff you want to talk about as far as her mythology?
Yes, I do. So going back to her Greek roots, as Julie mentioned, Vesta as Hestia, she was the first of the children of Rhea and Kronos to be born. So when you think Zeus and Poseidon and Hades and Demeter and all those, it was Hestia who came first. She was first born and first swallowed, if you remember. Kronos swallowed all of his children except for Zeus. So she was the first, and as he regurgitated his children, eventually she was the last. So she had this interesting mantle, I guess you could say, to use that word again, of being both the firstborn and the lastborn. Something that I find so fascinating about that is that in addition to her being the first and the last, she was considered she had the highest honors of all the Olympians. Any sacrifice that was made to any god, part of it, and usually the first and the last of it, was dedicated to her. Every temple was dedicated to her, as well as whoever it was intended to be dedicated to, like whoever it was built to. She had this high esteemed place, and she was the center in a lot of ways of everything. She represented the center of the home, but also the center of the community, because every community had a hearth as well. I find it so fascinating how that imagery and that wording, first and last, really connects us to this idea of Christ as well. If you go to like thinking about Christ, he was the Alpha and the Omega is what he was called. He was the first and the last. And he was a child that was so vital, but he was also always a king. And Vesta, Hestia, was this as well, perpetually the youngest, perpetually the oldest. And this all ties really well into why I think Hestia and Vesta are connected to Leo. That she actually rules Leo, and that whole piece of child and royalty that is part of Leo. It's this mirroring, or maybe this even more ancient idea that predates maybe even Christ. Just this idea of there's a being who is both the child and the king or queen, who is simultaneously both and is connected to that regality of lions. So yeah, it's just really important to keep in mind that Vesta has both this sanctity to her that Julie mentioned, as well as this childlikeness that can be playful, that can be intense, that can be like, we're going to flip tables in the temple. And so as you learn more about Vesta, keep all of that in mind. She's not just this quiet, docile center of the home that sometimes people think she is.
What is a different definition of virgin that we need to be aware of here? Because this is key, I think.
So before I jump into this and some more good tidbits about Hestia and Vesta and how they're related to this and also her spiciness, I did want to mention to Kaylee's comment, because I think it can be a new idea that like these ideas were around before the Bible. These things are older than that, and a lot of it is an echoing, but I think we've been able to show that the older that you go, so many of these ideas are older and then they're repurposed or they come back later. I love that. And most of the time, at least in my research that I've done, it comes from a feminine deity first, and then it gets changed into a masculine deity. And that might be like triggering for people to hear, but that's like, if you go back chronologically, if you look at the evidence, all of this stuff, like the first and the last, like the holding a mantle, all that stuff comes before, and usually comes through a female deity first, and then it becomes a male deity. That's not to put down anybody's like religious tradition. That's just to say there's more nuance than you think, and there's more of the feminine here than people realize.
I was just kind of like, mine, as you were saying that, I was thinking about, this is the same thing as the chicken or the egg question, right? Which came first, the rooster or the egg? Like, it's not a masculine concept. Eternal, it's like purely cyclical. This isn't a first and last is exactly about cycles. It's about cycle, about circle. Yeah. Anyways.
Yes, totally. And there's so many things, right? Like there's so many things like this. It blows your mind. Things that are always echoed and changed. That doesn't make them invalid. That's not to invalidate anything anyone believes or thinks. It's just to support, like these ideas have been around forever. And most of the time they have a feminine origin, and we're just missing that feminine piece. That's the thing. We're trying to make it like Kayelee talks about, right? We don't want the pendulum to swing too far in either direction, but we need to bring back the feminine to make the pendulum be in the middle, like actually do the thing that it needs to do. This correlates with what we're talking about with virgin and the word virgin. In our minds, right, someone who is a virgin, whenever we think about this, is a woman who has not had sex most of the time. I guess men can be virgins too, but most of the time this word is applied to women. And it's applied to a woman who has never had intercourse, particularly word coitus, which is like someone goes inside of you. Okay. That is not to be like too graphic, but that is usually the definition. However, there's a lot of evidence that the word virgin doesn't necessarily mean that. And so a lot of the things that happen in Rome later were kind of twisting the idea of the virgin and this idea of virginity, or not getting, not having sex, right? And seeing sex as like you can't be sanctified or purified, or you can't be spiritual and have sex. So originally, we actually see this even in the Bible, which is crazy because let me just give this example. So like people know about this prophet named Isaiah. People have probably heard that name before. He has a famous scripture where he says, a child shall be born to a virgin, right? Actually, in this context, and everybody thinks that must be Mary because she was a virgin and she bears this child, right? But if you actually look at what happens with Isaiah, this prophecy is fulfilled by his wife. She has a baby and she gives the baby a name. How can she be a virgin? Because she's married to Isaiah. They already have kids. So obviously not a virgin in that sense. It's also connected back to a title, the Virgin. I don't think we talked about this with David Butler, but Dave and I have talked about this extensively, and he's talked about it on lots of other podcasts. There's lots of people talking about this. The Virgin used to be a title of the goddess. The goddess is the Virgin. She's the Virgin. It's a title first. So it's not a state of dignity, meaning like it's not what you have or have not done. It's about who you are and that you are in the fellowship of the Virgin. You are like her. You're like the goddess. So we need to be careful about this idea that Hestia, especially, right, in Rome, later in the beginning, the Vestal Virgins, it's not necessarily about keeping yourself sexually pure. It's more about their devotion and who are they devoted to. Okay, they're devoted to the flame, they're devoted to Rome, and it's about them being part of the title, this title of the Virgin, meaning like they come from the goddess. They are a mother goddess, which harkens back to, where does Hestia come from? The center of the earth. Where does she live? The middle of the earth. She comes from the center of all things. She is Mother Earth. She's part of that. And so that's what, when we're talking about the Vestal Virgins and the word virgin, and that I promise this is important. This is not just like my diatribe to like be like, meh, meh, meh. What this is about is when we interpret Vesta and we look at her in her charts, lots of astrologers or people will interpret it of like, this is about virginity, abstaining from sex, or like they'll use some kind of like, this is about where you abstain. I was reading some stuff about like, this is where you are so devoted to something you abstain or whatever. And we kind of have to separate that from her because it's not about abstinence per se. It's not about abstinence, it's about devotion. What are you devoted to? So it's really important to clarify that. And as to her spiciness, sorry, am I talking too much?
You're great.
Okay, sorry, I'm giving my diatribe. As to her spiciness, something that we don't often talk about is the word palace. So it's kind of funny because we talked about Palace Athena, but when I'm talking about a palace, I mean a kingdom palace, a palace that you live in. It actually comes from Vesta. That's related to the word Vesta because her alternate name is, are you ready for this? Oh my gosh, I love it so much. Her alternate name is Diva Paletu. That's her ultimate. Yes, Diva.
Hold on. No. Diva is the word that Beyonce made up. What are you talking about?
No, baby, no. Diva goes back to Vesta. She is the first
Wow.
diva. That's her name, Diva Paletu, which means Lady of the Palatine Temple. I'm probably saying these words.
Is that where the word paladin comes from? Like the holy knight type of situation?
I have no idea, but it's possible. I didn't
sounds
get that
related.
far.
It sounds very related.
They have
because
similar roots.
they're all like, I'm gonna take this loyalty,
Yeah.
this fealty, and go.
They're about devotion. Yeah.
Yeah, fight on behalf of. Interesting.
Yeah, it totally could be related. I bet it is. I just don't. I'm sure someone will write in and be like, they are related. Da, 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 da. But if they're not, or they'll tell us we're wrong and that they're not actually related. But we're waiting for it. If you know it, write into us and we will chat about it. But yes, diva. Okay. So the word diva also is connected to Vesta.
Hey friends, it's Jaye Anne here. If you have been feeling really stressed out about the world lately, you are not alone. There's been enough crazy and fear flying around the internet that even I've been knocked off my rocker sometimes. But it's times like these that I'm really grateful for the tools I have to regulate my nervous system. I developed these tools for myself when I was going through the thick of it. My babies were young and I had a ton of repressed anger. And these tools help me through other stressful times, including negotiating my own divorce, having difficult money conversations, and of course, the whole COVID experience. And I've put all these tools in a method I call the authentic self-care method. This is different than other self-care programs because it is a framework for you to find your special sauce when it comes to self-care. And let me tell you a secret. Step 1 is not take a bath, get a haircut, or go to the gym. Step 1 is regulate your nervous system. And that's exactly what we do inside the 3-in-1 membership. This powerful program includes focused journals and meditations you can do in just a few minutes, like the fight or flight session, the hippocampus session, which rewrites your ability to see new possibilities, and the vagus nerve session, which helps you regulate your whole body in a crisis. Using these tools, members have reported feeling more empowered, more expansive, and many experienced relief from actual physical pain, all for less than $2 a day. So join the 3-in-1 membership now so you can learn these tools today. The world is not going to become less crazy. The only thing you can control is how you respond to it. The 3-in-1 membership will help you do that, so click the link in the show notes to enroll today.
So when we're talking about like the spiciness aspect, which is really interesting when you think about what Kayelee Rose just said, Vesta's in charge of what? Leo! Okay. Sorry, I'm just like so into it. I'm like, dang, this is so cool. And then the last thing I have to say, I promise it's the last thing I have to say about this particular part, is Vesta is also related to wolves. Yes.
Really?
The power of the wolf. Yes, I know. Because Rhea Sylvia was seen as like one of the very first, she's the first Vestal Virgin. And she's the mother of, sorry, just so everybody knows, this is like a Roman myth, by the way. Going back to that, just so people don't think like Rhea is like a person now, or I don't know. Anyway.
Kaylee's about to lose her mind. I'm loving it. I'm loving whatever this is about to happen. I'm here for it. Oh my gosh, you guys, get on the edge of your seats. Go for it.
Okay, so Rhea Sylvia, she's the mother of Romulus and Remus, who are the twins nursed by wolves, right? The wolf Lupa. And Rhea is very connected to Lupa because of this. And so the wolf Lupa is also kind of considered a Vestal Virgin because of her work with Rhea Sylvia, who's the first Vestal Virgin. And so that's how we kind of get a little bit of a connection to the wolf here, which is kind of so interesting because I know so many women who have Leo placements who like they feel akin to the wolf. They're like, I run with the wolves, right? Like Leo moons tend to have this like connection. So there's a little bit of the connection to the wolf. Of course, as well, there's going to be a connection to lions. Those pair together really well. And the lion is always going to be associated with Leo as well.
Sorry, I was freaking out while you were talking when you said Rhea Sylvia because there is a formation on the actual asteroid Vesta that's called Rhea Sylvia. And I was like, oh, that's interesting because her mother was Rhea, but what's that about? And then you just told me what that's about. But she also has a trench along her equatorial region that's bigger than the Grand Canyon named Divalia Fossa. And I was like, Diva. Oh, and it's bigger than the Grand Canyon? Talk about a diva. Like, there we are. Look at me. I just love how the actual physical astronomy mirrors the mythology that is a part of our collective unconscious, and then also mirrors how it shows up in our astrology. Like, it's just so poignant. And sometimes it's so literal.
I love this. Also, Diva is like the less bad version of calling somebody a hoe or whatever, too. So it's sort of like, all right, okay, Diva. let's stop doing that. Let's actually exalt each other properly. Yes, thank you.
That's right. So think about it if someone calls you a diva, okay, we should probably like start.
You're just like Vesta.
Yeah,
just they're actually calling you a virgin. So
yeah, yeah.
That was cute. You like decide at exactly the same time. It's adorable. It's adorable, and I'm here for it. So good. Is there anything else that we should know about the myths? I kind of want to jump into the astrology in a minute, but this has been such good, deep conversation.
Do have one thing I want to add that relates to the
Yes.
mythology. So, if somebody was seeking asylum or refuge, or they even were like a criminal and were wanting to potentially receive pardon, the place they would go would be the hearth of the community. That was like the safe place to ask for that. And if you wanted asylum or safety in someone's home, you would go to the hearth and you would petition. And so there's this added component of Vesta that's super fascinating, that has this degree of like me, everybody who's struggling, everybody who maybe messed up big time and wants a little support, bring them to me. They're mine. And also this sense of like, and also there's probably going to be some degree of justice meted out. She was related to justice and to parliament and things like that. And so there's this duality of mercy and justice that that comes up with Vesta, Hestia, that once again is this, could call it, what's the opposite of an echo? Like the original sound maybe of like, oh, the mercy and justice of like Christ. And I keep bringing it back to that, but there's just this intriguing correlation. And as I study it more and more, there's more and more that comes up as like she's essentially, in a lot of ways, this predecessor of the like a Christ figure, of somebody standing in an intercessory way, pleading your case. And I just love that idea, because it, whether you are Christian or not, whether you have a background in Christianity or not, the idea of somebody who looks like you and feels like you and sounds like you being in a position to intercede on your behalf when you can't do it for yourself is very empowering and also liberating, and gives this sense of peace. Granted, like, I don't have to have every person in my life look or sound like me. I don't need every significant person in my life to be a woman. I don't want that. I want men in my life. But sometimes we have been like, we get so used to hearing about people of influence or people of prestige or people of religious significance being male, that as women, it's like, where does that leave me in the equation? So to have even just this earlier history that doesn't necessarily negate anything that came after, but that gives some context for what comes after, that has a female name and voice and body and perspective and energy, it's a big deal for women. And for men, actually. It's important for men to have these female figures in their lives as well. But I am a woman, so I am speaking from that perspective.
It's like a key cornerstone of this entire podcast, like all of that right here. All of that. That's why we had Dave Butler on in the first place, because it's like, whoa, hold on. They deleted this. All this was pulled out for some other purpose and condemned and called evil. And that's why we have to bring it back, because actually evil is just was a thing that was done. And it's another, like, I'm gonna go on a tangent slightly too, 'cause it's my turn.
Yay!
But in everything that I have like read and studied, and I spent probably a year, 2 years just reading one chapter of Genesis. I think it's three, whatever one where it talks about the fall of man. And what I really focused in on was, this wasn't the fall of mankind, it was the fall of the perception of men. When he ate the fruit, he realized, oh my gosh, there's so much going on here. I can't deal. And then all of humanity went into this kind of death spiral. And that's what we're kind of dealing with. And that was like something that really helped me understand. Because when the woman ate it, she was like, oh, okay, this is happening and this is happening. You should learn this too. And anyways, that's my diatribe. But it helped me realize that that was okay. And that's why a lot of women are like, I'm going to focus on myself and I'm going to focus on my own stuff and heal my own stuff. And hopefully I will find a partner who is like-minded. But I know a lot of women are like complaining out there that they're not seeing that happen on the other side. So that's okay. They'll do their thing. But yeah, this whole there is a place for me in the first place is the actual original problem. Is like, oh, there's no, honey. You just sit down and close your legs. So that's what all this
Or
means.
open them at the right time.
Yes, when I say so, that's when you can do it. Any other time, and you're not supposed to have fun. That's not part of it.
Oh, so real. In so many ways. That's so interesting because Jaye Anne and Kayelee know this, but recently I was at the Salem Witch Museum.
Mm.
Yes, and it was very fascinating. Again, if anyone, has read this is the American one. If anyone has read The Crucible, then we're focusing in on the women and men who died as a result of, being called a witch in America in just 1 year in 1692. There were others who died before and after, but that was like the biggest period. And I think the last witch hunt, I was reading the plaque, which I think I sent you guys like pictures of all these plaques. I'm like, this is fascinating. Just
I read them
read,
all. I was like,
yes,
what?
read the plaque. But the last witch hunt was in 1785 or something, pretty close to the 1800s. Super fascinating. But it was so interesting to listen to the um the perceptions and the fear and the way that the fear got started for them, and like this ultimate fear of being good and not having the devil come knock at your door for anything, and that he's always out there, he's always watching you, he's trying to come get you. Women especially suffered with this because in these Puritan societies, exactly what Jayan was saying, you can't have expression. And if you did, I mean, even up until 1960, 1970s, if you have emotional outbursts, well, back then it was like the devil has gotten a hold of you because you had an emotional outburst. But even later, what happens in the 60s is then it gets turned into and labeled in the DSM as hysteria, right? You're hysterical. This is a condition women have for showing emotion is hysteria. And so I think
So we're going to remove your hysteria with a hysterectomy.
yes, no, for real. That was a real thing.
The source of your emotions.
Yes.
Yes.
And phlebotomies. Phlebotomies were for women.
Lobotomies.
Yes.
Yeah, lobotomies.
Phlebotomies.
Phlebotomies is just
Sorry.
taking the blood
Sorry,
out
not
of you.
lobotomies.
We've got your back,
Thank
Julie.
you. Thank you. Sorry.
Yep, we're here.
My brain, I've been traveling too much this week. But lobotomies were for women also, right? We're going to just remove everything from you because, and not that this didn't happen, not that men never had one, but if you look at the medical history, which is so close and dear to my heart, my research, it's really vastly the majority is women. So to come back full circle on this, I think we're partially talking about this stuff because Vesta is related to the word diva, okay? And what could happen to you if you were a diva way back when? You're going to get locked down. You're going to be called terrible names. You're going to maybe go to prison. You're going to get organs removed from your body. And this is interesting because, like Jan said, a big part of it is we didn't have someone who looked like us and was like us in a position of deity. And we can go back and see that before. And a lot of people don't know this either. If you want receipts, I'm happy to send you sources. But even in biblical times, you look at matriarchal societies that had goddesses and goddess ruled cultures, women did the same things that men did. There were even cultures in Africa where it was reversed, where men stayed home with children and where women were the ones going out and doing everything. I'm not saying that to be like, that is what should happen. Every man must stay home with the babies. That's not the point. The point is when you look at societies that had feminine deities, particularly feminine deities of power, like Vesta, who were looked at as, look at her. She is number one. All the sacrifices go to her. You have to give part of your sacrifice to Vesta. That's how important she is, how exonerated she is, and how, how much they venerated is what I meant. Venerated she is that you have to give all portions. She's the heart of the community. When you have a goddess like that, you can look at cultures and see how women are treated. And you can look across this all over the world and they're treated way differently than they are when you don't have that. And so I think to everything Jaye Anne said, that's why this is so important to bring up.
Well, and everything you just said is the shadow side of Leo. Like, stay small, don't do the things, keep from shining. And a lot of women struggle with Leo placements because of all this. Like, don't be the goddess, don't be the diva, don't be extra, don't show off too much, don't draw attention to yourself. Because if you actually wear something too nice and look good, then that's not the other person's problem for screwing with you. It's your fault. Like, what were you wearing? That whole thing. That's why, like, let's not make a female the ruler of Leo. Let's just make it the sun, whatever. No, it's supposed to be female.
Well, also, if Vesta rules Leo, okay, think about it. She is the fire that burns in the middle of the earth. Think about that. Instead of the ruler being the sun, which is the fire that burns above the earth, right? Think about all of our symbolism with the feminine and how it's about descending. You have to descend down, and like the connection to the earth and the connection to not just drawing wisdom from above, but also drawing wisdom from below and pulling that up, and how she represents that perfect dichotomy of the flame that burns inside, right? The goddess inside of you, and how that, if you look at that ruling Leo, how it changes so much rather than the god that's outside of you, that's burning,
Yes.
right? Constantly burning.
Ah, that was beautiful. And think of the magnetism at that point, at that level. Like, if you're talking, yeah, fantastic. Fantastic. Just It's just so glorious. We can just talk about this forever and ever. Okay, we got to talk about placements though. I have a Vesta in Aries. That's the only thing I have in Aries. I lied. I have other things in Aries. I have one other thing. It's my North Node. Whatevs. But apparently I lie about my own astrology a lot. Ooh, who knows? It's in a slightly different house. I forgot about that. Like slightly one over, obviously. But what should we do with Vesta and a fire sign? Because we just decided Vesta is associated with fire now, not just the Virgo Earth, which I think is really funny because we just talked about the Virgin and how we have a whole sign literally called the Virgin, and that's not the one she's gonna rule, which is funny and ironic. Also, what should people do? What should we expect with our fire sign Vesta?
Can we talk a little bit about the general showing up of Vesta in astrology before we
Oh,
dive
yes.
into the elements?
General showing up of Vesta in
Okay.
astrology.
Because I think we've
Because I
hinted
really,
here and
all I
there.
want to do is talk about Vesta and Leo, and that's it. I'm sorry.
That's all. But to go back to like the core of Vesta in astrology, I mean, we've covered it sort of without being super obvious, but there's this relationship with devotion and sacred sexuality, you could call it, this sense of like that sexuality and creative energy are actually one and the same, or at least at the very least stem from the same core energy that's at the core of your being, your earthy self. And Vesta also has this like longevity piece, this endurance, this we've got to keep this lit. And I often think of her as being related to hope. What is the hope in you that never dies? With that, there's kind of a flip side of that, where it's like if you try to do it too much by yourself, Vesta can show you where you're most prone to burn out, to just burning yourself into the ground because you were devoted, but you were running faster than you actually had the strength to run. So that's just something to be paying attention to with Vesta. There's this showing up and shining piece and this hospitality piece. Julie, what thoughts are coming up for you around how Vesta shows up?
We've talked about it a little bit as I'm talking about what she stands for, weaving that into Leo, right? How this could apply to Leos, particularly just because it's probably such a new take on so many people's charts. Like, I have a sister who strong Leo, like 5-degree strong Leo energy. She loves being a Leo. For her, that's her jam. But I know lots of other women who, like Jaye Anne said, don't feel connected to being a Leo. And for many reasons. So I think that Vesta can shine the light on why they don't feel connected. So let's put some layers on Leo that maybe they didn't have before. Jaye Anne talked about the hospitality piece, right? So let's talk a little bit about traditional Leo, because I think that will help to contrast a little bit. So when we talk about Leo traditionally, we think about the lion and we think about someone who is shining and performative and often warm and outgoing because fire signs tend to be warm in general. Think about the nature of fire. But this fire is fixed fire, which means it's in the thick of it and sometimes it's a little bit more, in my opinion, stubborn of a flame, right? Because it's constant. And so lots of times Leos can be known for being a tiny bit judgy, and that's okay in a different kind of way. But they just have this ability, right? Discernment of seeing between light and dark and knowing what's light and knowing what's dark. They also, like I said, the performative piece is often a big piece here for people when they talk about Leo, showing up and being the one to be like, ta-da, here I am. I'm great, and this is great, and you're great, la 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 la. Other things about Leo, Kayelee and Jaye Anne, other things, like regular Leo we talk about.
A lot of playfulness, a lot of playfulness, a lot of creativity, like on the fly creativity. It's not like necessarily like divinely inspired because that's more of the Piscean creativity, but it's like I'm gonna be jovial, very bardic. Like if you ever play Dungeons and Dragons, like I always think of Leo as the bard, very flirtatious. Not always like a lot to back that up. It's like I'm gonna be friendly with everybody. And yeah, that's what I think of when I think of Leo. It's just the shining star of everything. Everybody loves that person, and it's charisma rules of 95. You know what I mean? Like, sorry, I'm gonna stop making D&D
Charisma rolls
references.
of 90.
If you know D&D, like the high on critting is like 20, and there's like no charisma all the way. So much charisma. Rules don't matter to Leos. Believe me, I know. He could walk into school and be 3 hours late and just like, see you later, whatever. Yeah. And the whole admin office would be like, way to go. Way to go. Thanks for showing up. And he's like, I brought a board. His name is Blank. He's got wood rot. And then, yeah, like what? Who says these things? Leos can say these things and get like standing on the edge of their seat. Yes. Charisma to the max. Anyways. Happy times.
And I would say especially middle deccan Leos.
Oh, I was gonna say, what decan should we be
Those
focusing
are the
on right now?
ones that you're talking about. Those Leos particularly. Go ahead, Kayelee.
Well, this kind of starts morphing out of, oh, traditionally Leos are like this, but it's still a little rooted, so I'm going to say it. Leos and Leo energy in general, people love to hate on Leos just as much as they love to love on them, which is kind of sad, but also I get it. They can come across as self-centered. They can come across as, like Julie said, judgmental. There can be a lot of jealousy where it's like, why are they at the center of attention? Like, why? But I have noticed that Leo energy, that there's this element of like, I'm being of service by showing up wholeheartedly. I'm serving you by being on this stage or by telling this joke. I am a gift to you, not because I'm more important than you, but because my heart is out there and I feel all this stuff and I'm just going to show up and serve you. And people don't think about that with Leo, but that's totally what's going on a lot of the time. Leo energy in so many ways is like the heart and soul of a community, the heart and soul of a family, the heart and soul of something, which is so beautiful when we think about Vesta and her connection to the hearth. But there's this vitality and this joyfulness and this rawness that can come with Leo that sometimes doesn't make sense with the performative nature that can come across with Leo. But when Leo is empowered, the performance isn't because, oh, I've got to puff up my ego. It's I'm performing for the love of it and for the love of you.
Yes, there has to be a certain level of vulnerability. It has to mean something. There has to be a lot riding on it, and it has to be a complete and full authenticity in order for it to be Leo performance. The shadow side is I'm going to perform to perform, and that is not Leo. If you're trying to people please using performance or like, I want to be the center of attention, it doesn't work. And it has to like, you have to get to that like scary, vulnerable place, which goes along with that Vesta piece of like, the fire could go out. Let's keep going. If the fire goes out, we all die, right? Like there's a certain level of that, right? Like when you're in the olden times and you're maintaining the fire, that was a really important job. If your fire went out, if your coals went out, like you couldn't eat, you could freeze. There's so much writing on that fire. There's so much vulnerability in that fire not being in its true essence. So I just love how this makes sense to me too. I love it.
Well, and fire is finicky, right? I mean, I have done many campfires this year. I've worked with fire a lot this year, and fire is very finicky, right? It can easily go out if you're not careful. It's really hard to start it back up again. It's hard to start unless you do what Lige does and pour like a bunch of lighter fluid on it. And
Lige is my husband for anyone who
yeah.
doesn't know. And yes, he is a firebug and he loves his lighter fluid.
Yes, if you do that, it's easier. But if you are really trying to make a fire from scratch, right, you really have to tend to it. You have to be careful with it. You have to build the whole log cabin thing, right? You have to put the easy to burn stuff in the middle, then the harder to burn, then the harder to burn to keep it going. And so I love this because to me, Leo in many ways is the open-hearted leader, but only if Leo is, like you said, empowered. The shadow side is the leader that's only out for themselves and is out for power and is out to perform and just wants to shine for themselves. The empowered version is the open-hearted leader that is vulnerable enough to do this for everybody and stick their neck out for everybody. Some people, I think, have a hard time with Leo because, especially maybe if you have that first decan, it can be a little harder to feel Leo-esque because that first decan deals a lot with figuring out, is it okay to shine? And like going back and forth between like, I have to be bold. There's a certain boldness that comes with Leo. Leo is quite bold. There's a boldness that comes with it, but also this like, ooh, I don't know if I want to show that much. Like I'm bold, but also like there's this little scared piece that you're trying to figure out in that. And tying this back to what Vesta does and putting some more layers on this, I think Kayelee and Jaye Anne did it beautifully, right? The vulnerability piece coming together, the hospitality piece then makes sense. And if you know Leos, they love to party. They can be the life of the party. They want to bring you in. Let's all have a good time. We all need to have a good time. That's also that hospitality piece that comes from Vesta, and also this devotion piece that you both kind of said it, but being devoted, not just the tender heart, but being completely devoted to something and wanting to devote yourself to something. Of course, Vesta is still a flame, so we still get that shining, that sparkling piece, and like shining from the real heart. As we talked about, Vesta is the center of the earth, right? Shining from the core. So in this version of Leo, it's not just shining like the sun shines, it's shining from your core, shining from your heart. And Leo in medical astrology, as Kayelee mentioned, is over the heart, literally. It's over that organ, which is so perfect for Vesta, right? Because she's the heart of the community. She's the heart of Rome. I love that part of, just this idea of making the daily life sacred, like performing that, and how her life is devotion constantly and like bringing things to people. So you can put in that sacred sexuality piece. There is that diva quality of shining and showing your sexual energy, maybe not in the way you think about it, right? Not in the way where I need to be a pole dancer if I'm a Leo, but in the way that you totally could be, but like for many people who are not pole dancers and are Leos, it's you're shining, your creative energy, right? Leo rules that fifth house, that creative energy, that sexual energy that brings everything to life, that starts life and brings life. So as far as Vesta, in your chart, in your personal chart, like Kayelee said, it can speak to your sacred sexuality, your sacred sexual energy. But to me, a lot of the times, Vesta is about what are you committed to? What are you so committed to? What are you devoted to? We kind of talked about this. What are you so devoted to? You're willing to do it 24/7. You're willing to bring down fire from the sky with your quartz crystals to like light this, right? What is so innately part of you? I think Jan brought up a great piece about the authenticity. I think Vesta can speak to your authenticity, how to tap into that authentic flame that is really you. Also, just speaking to what are things that are really tender for you, right? Because the flip side of devotion is these things are things that are really tender in your heart. This is a tender piece that if it gets hurt or if it's not in a good condition, can really like, ooh, that can be tough, or it can burn you out, like Kayelee said. I think those are the big Vesta pieces. Yeah. And maybe where are you the first and the last? We could talk about that. Like, where are you the first and the last? Ooh, where's your mantle? What's your mantle? We could talk about that too. Hey friends, it's Julie. I'm just popping in here real quick to tell you about a very special invitation we have for you. If you have been feeling deeply called to learn more about your feminine identity or to see what feminine power really is, or you're just loving the podcast, then Kayelee and I would love to invite you to join our community, Feminine Alchemist. Inside, we host live monthly women's circles, challenges, and Wheel of the Year celebrations. They are seriously so much fun. We have monthly workshops where we bring in experts to teach on anything from menstruation to mythology. You'll also get access to our library of courses about astrology, intuition techniques, sacred embodiment, and cyclical living. And most importantly, you'll be able to connect with women who are like-hearted and walking the same path as you. So if this sounds exciting to you, join today by clicking the link in the show notes or going to femininealchemist.com. That's alchemist spelled M-Y-S-T. Okay, back to the episode.
Okay, so let's talk about fire now. What do the fire Vestas need to know about their Vesta?
Well, they probably burn hotter than the other Vestas. They're probably going to be a little bit more obviously passionate about whatever it is that they're devoted to. And they're also probably more at risk of burning themselves out because of that extra fieriness. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say being careful. We said this a little bit with Ceres, but in a different way, but making sure you're also devoted to yourself, right? You devote to yourself, whatever that is, like your physical body, the things that you're passionate about. Vesta and Leo might be devotion to a specific kind of performance and the way that you perform and show up, or devotion to leadership and being a certain type of leader or whatever kind. In Aries, right, that might be to your body or to pushing forward. That cardinal energy might come through. Devotion to beginning, like to be able to start things, to move. But also these are going to be tender pieces. For Sagittarius, that might look like devotion to learning, devotion to seeking, devotion to spiritual, higher learning things or explorations. But I would say that Vesta in a fire sign, as far as the tender part of it goes, is maybe very tender for you when you feel like you are unappreciated, right? Not being appreciated, not being felt, not being seen. When people dampen your flame, and this is something that people don't often talk about fire signs, and I am very sorry, it is true. In this sense, fire signs love to be like, they're big and they're hard and they do the stuff and like blah blah blah, it's a masculine
You
sign,
can't
so
hurt
like
me.
they're tough and they can they can put punches in, right? They can be spicy and they can cut and but they also are quite tender. The flip side no one talks about is like sometimes fire signs can dish it, but they can't take it. They have a harder time dealing with it coming back. But like if you pour water on them, they're like, it's really hard because they're like, my life force, it's out. But yeah, using that passionate life, it might be tender to you when no one sees you, when you are not being appreciated, when someone dampens on you, but your creative energy, right? Think about that fire energy. Like, where is that creative energy coming from? And for fire, it's going to be some kind of life force. Like, it's coming from your life force. It's coming from this thing you can birth and perform, and thus how you shine and what you shine for. So I think that's a little bit. Oh, and what are you committed to? Devotion. And devotion to that shining, right? Devotion to different types of shining, but devotion to what do you need to perform or show or put out into the world.
Beautiful. What are your thoughts, Kayelee? What are your thoughts?
Uh, yeah, I think Julie summed that up really well. Let's move on to the earth.
We got it. Okay.
Well, Jaye Anne, I do want to hear what's your
Yeah.
experience? Do you have any
Yeah.
experiences coming up?
Yeah. So my experience is that I have Vesta and Aries in the second house. And so also I'm a generator, right? So like there's a lot of similarity to what the dynamic is for me. I'm always looking for something to plug into, and I want someone else to tell me what to do. So with this shift of Vesta ruling Leo and being the center of the earth and having that whole concept is so much easier to be like, oh, just have to plug into things like nature or self. I don't need to plug outside of me. And it's been a consistent problem is like I get too committed to something that's not in alignment and I can't stop until I burn out. And then I go, no, I'm not doing this. And I rage quit, whatever it is. Because fire, gotta rage. But it's usually in the realm of some kind of work experience, right? So something like that is what happens, and I get too headstrong in it. I get too into it, and then I go, this is kind of toxic. And then I try to pull back and I go, well, loyalty, maybe it'll work out. Maybe it'll sort itself out. And it never does. I should listen to that first inkling, but it takes me, 5, 6, 7 times because I have that Scorpio midheaven and I am like terrified that people are going to think that I'm always changing jobs and I'm the worst. And I'm like a terrible human being because I'm always changing jobs. So there's this interplay of that in my Vesta and my psyche just kind of going, rawr, you should not. So then I end up just burning it all to the ground. It's such a Leo thing too. As loyal as they are really good at full stop disconnecting. The end. It's over. I don't know who that person is. When once upon a time that was their commitment, that was their loyalty, that was what they were burning the fires for. So I totally resonate with that when it comes to like working jobs and things like that. Oftentimes I've worked somewhere and then I've left and I go, yeah, I always hang out again, but I never talk to them again. Some people I do, but most people I just don't because I'm just not in that energetic space. That's my experience.
Yeah, I like those examples that you're giving and the fire burning, that just being so careful to follow, what house is it in? Because I was thinking about that too.
Second house.
Okay, of
There's
course.
like a big money
Yes,
problem.
money problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's like I feel too invested into that thing emotionally. Yeah, and that's the other thing. Every time I work for somebody else, I get so into it and I'm like, I care so. And I'm like, this is my new identity. And I love it. And I want to make it be better. And I want to help whoever it is, whatever it is. And they don't always want my help. And they're doing it wrong because I know I'm right. And they just want to do it wrong. And I'm like, you know what? You can be in the dark for a while. That's okay. And then they go, no, this is how I'm going to do it. And I'm like, what am I going to do with this? And that's how I end up like screaming into the wind and feeling like I'm never heard. And all of that stuff happens. So it's been very eye-opening to have this conversation. Looking at it from like Vesta equals Leo rather than, oh, it's just this nebulous thing of the sun. I mean, my sun is in the 5th house too, but like looking at this, like it really hones in on what is this? I just was like, I don't have Leo placements, whatever. Like, I don't know anything about Leo. Like, but that is a massive functioning of Vesta in my life is how I work for other people.
That's
Or have
fascinating.
worked.
Yeah.
I'm so interested.
You are. It is.
I know,
It's interesting to see all these connections, but it is also interesting that 5th house. I don't know anything about Leo, and I'm a 5th house sun. I mean, they're
5th
different.
house
They are
with a
different. They're
stellium.
different,
Yes.
but they're definitely different. So, all right, Kayelee Rose, let's hear it.
All right.
Do it.
So, Vesta in an earth sign. I mean, Vesta is very connected, as we've said, to devotion, but in an earth sign, there is an extra stability, I would say, to that devotion. There's a certain groundedness and a practicality that can come in, maybe a sentimentality, especially if we're talking Taurus. Vesta in Taurus, there can be a sentimentality, but also what you're likely to be devoted to may have a very physical component. You may be very devoted to a certain physical space or the feeling in a certain physical space. You may be very devoted to the accumulation of resources, things like that are very tangible. It might be a little bit harder for you to feel devoted to an idea or a spiritual concept if your Vesta is in an earth sign. Not saying you're not capable. You just might struggle a little bit more. And your energy levels and your excitement and your hope are going to be very heavily influenced by how grounded you are, I would say.
Yeah, I kept thinking about this one, the devotion being, at least for some, like, I'm devoted to science, and these practical things, or building a business. That would be so Capricornian to have this, I'm devoted to building a business piece. Or even with Virgo, you being very devoted to something like nursing, or making things better, or serving people and seeing those physical results and purifying things. With Taurus, I kept thinking about being devoted, like you said, to accumulating resources and beauty, like the beautiful things, comfort, like bringing comfort into your life and making other people comfortable. Taurus is also very family oriented as well, and so could definitely be like devotion to your family. And when people trample on those things, being really hard for you. Or even to I kept thinking about like devotions to tradition could be definitely an earth thing, or like to doing things the right way, the proper way, whatever you think the right way is, whatever that is for you, but like that devotion. And then as far as like what will hurt you, I was thinking like it might be harder for you to give up physical objects. Like that could be an actual difficult thing if your physical objects are taken or your stability is taken away. Jaye Anne has a thing.
Oh my gosh. It's like, have you ever met anyone, or maybe one or both of you are like this, but there's a personification of the object, even if it's like anything normal, like it's a shoe. No, this is my friend's shoe. I'm so committed to this shoe that it is a friend, but it's with literally every single thing. Everything is so well loved to get tired, because that's exhausting.
It is. And
It's exhausting to try to go through your stuff, but feel like so identified with that thing that's not serving you anymore. So it needs to go.
Totally.
Yes.
Totally. It's so hard. And earth in general, people with lots of earth signs have hard things getting rid of stuff anyway. Like they just do. Sorry, I don't care. I have lots of earth. Okay. It was really hard
Me
for me to
too.
get rid of everything in my house. It was very hard. I was a pack rat for a long time, and it runs in my family. But it is hard already. And I can't imagine having Vesta there also would be like probably pretty intense. I also was going to say, and I always say this about earth, it's just the truth. When you have an earth placement that's being disrespected or not being seen as capable, that is the tender part for earth. Earth is like, how could you disrespect me? I know the things. I am the structure. I am the earth. Like, don't disrespect me. But that's like a huge, how dare you not think I'm capable? Or like I can do these things. But yeah, instability might be a really big factor. Anyway, we can move on to the water. Or no, air. Sorry, air goes next.
Air.
We can't skip air.
We can't skip air. Where are your guys' placements?
My Vesta is in Pisces.
You're so much Pisces. So much Pisces.
Cute little Pisces.
I don't know why I said that. I mean, to like make you feel belittled or anything. I just want to be like, oh yeah, Pisces.
Oh my gosh. Well, and it's so funny because I actually only have 3 placements in Pisces.
It's just we met
Just
all.
three.
They're my sun and my moon and my Vesta. So
Yeah, just sun and moon and Vesta. All right. The very heart of you is there.
well, and if we want
Hilarious.
to talk angles, it's also my descendant, or not descendant, my IC. So
Not important at all. Not important at all. No, I'll tell you. No, my Vesta's also in Pisces. And She is conjunct Pallas. Literally, they're only a couple minutes apart. They're barely.
Wow.
Yeah, kind of fun. I don't know how to really interpret that, but we'll talk about it later. So, air.
To get
Let's
back to
talk about
air.
the air stuff.
What immediately came to mind for me with Vesta in an air sign is just as it relates to the hospitality piece, they would throw some really awesome parties, I would say, but they're probably not well planned out. They just kind of have this idea and then invite all the people and have a blast chatting. It's a good time, a really good time. But they probably forgot the cups, and who knows if there's enough food, but who cares because they're just having such a good time.
I'm sorry. You just described my wedding. Lovely. I don't even have Vesta placements, but I have a lot of air placements.
That's too funny. Too funny.
A lot of people filled the gaps for me, and I was like, "Oh, okay, we're doing that. Sure, why not?"
Yeah.
I was like, "We should make it a potluck," and everybody's like, "No," and I was like, "Okay,
Potluck. That's
okay, we'll do
awesome.
that. We'll not do that. That's fine." It was the best.
Yeah, I wanted to hear what Jaye Anne had to say because she has like 5 placements in Gemini, right? Like a stellium there, that you have an Aquarius rising. You
Yeah,
have a couple things in Libra or like one thing in Libra.
I have a South Node in Libra. South Node, go away. Yeah, no, I didn't actually have thoughts when you thought I had thoughts, but I can make some. That's very Gemini.
I was just gonna say, there's the Gemini.
There's the Gemini. Yes, and also therefore my Gemini sun is in the 5th house, right? So there's a little bit of flair there with the Leo Vesta 5th house fun times. I could see this being a really great authenticity, being kind of variable, and that being okay. Because air, while it's like very friendly and very about different relations. It's always about 2 perspectives, but the distance on perspectives gets farther away. So like when we're talking about Gemini, we're talking about one eye, the other eye. When we're talking about Libra, we're talking about me and you perspective. When we're talking about Aquarius, they're talking about me and the population. And so when we go through that concept, like it's about relationship, but it's also like very much about testing. What is this? What is this? What is that? What is that? What is that? And logic is variable. It's solid, it's variable. And we always have to remember that logic is not an earth sign. It's an air sign. It's variable and it's changeable. So I could totally see where somebody who has Vesta in an air sign struggling with what is my authentic self and why is 1 year ago me not the same as today me. That's totally fine. You don't have to be consistent. Just keep being present, keep being you, keep feeling the feelings, keep experiencing things.
I love that. I think that's just super beautiful. I also was thinking about this devotion to ideas, being devoted to kinds of ideas or exploration, being able to explore ideas and have different viewpoints and not being put in a box, like Jaye Anne said, or even words, being devoted to words. Like, what if you wrote poetry or something? Like, this could really lovely, especially if you had like Vesta and Venus or Vesta and the moon, loving to have this writing piece. And I think it will be hard for people with Vesta and air placements to feel like imbalanced and also to feel stuck in the box, like feel like they have to be one thing. You have to be steady, you have to be consistent all the time. I think that would be really intense for them, and just not having the freedom to be air, like to jaunt around and throw the parties and do the fun things that they want to do, but to have to buckle down all the time, that might be really difficult for Vesta and an air sign.
And you can be devoted to ideas without having the same idea the whole time. Like you can change your mind, but you're devoted to the deep dive of the idea and understanding like, okay, what is this? Is this true? Is this still true? Is that still true? What do I feel? What do I see? Yeah. Anyways, what else we got? Yeah. Water.
Water.
Water?
Water.
Water. What do you guys think about having Vesta in a water sign? What do you feel about it? What are you experiencing with it? How embodied are you with having Vesta in a water sign? How nurturing and emotionally intelligent are you committed to this by having Vesta in a water sign? I didn't describe any of that.
Okay, I'm trying to get to where I can talk. I might be
Fire
there.
water. Let me give you a minute. Well, I'll just keep talking so you can like breathe. I don't know if that's going to happen. Keep breathing.
All right. Vesta and water. I mean, do you want me to speak to my lived experience or do you want me to speak to, like, philosophically, Vesta and water can appear like this?
Probably B then A. Yeah.
Okay,
So
we'll
let's
go
do
with B.
philosophical.
So, as far as philosophically, Vesta in a water sign, there can definitely be a devotion to less tangible things like emotions, like the beyond and spirituality. Um, and definitely this like your sexuality and your creative spark being very tied into how do you feel? Like how do you feel emotionally? How does your body feel? And if they're not lining up, you're probably not going to create something right now. And being that tenderness piece that's been brought up a few times, being probably very, very tender. What are you thinking, Julie?
Yeah, I agree. I was thinking about, Jaye Anne already brought this up, but being devoted to nurturing others, caring. And I can see people with water placements like this, depending on the house. Obviously, you get more nuance when you go through the houses. So look at your house, people. If you're feeling like, I don't know, my Vesta's here, but I don't really feel like that, look at the house because it'll give you a lot more specificity. I see a lot of people with strong water placements, this devotion to being lots of times the caretaker, right? Caretaking, and they're the other one. Virgo, earth signs often end up in science roles and becoming nurses and doctors because they love that part of dissecting and purifying and finding and learning. And the water often finds itself also in caretaking roles and many times as nurses or doctors because of that nurturing piece of them. Like, I want to take care of people, I want to help people, I want to make them feel better. So I can definitely see a devotion to a career like that, or to like your family or to children in that way, having that deep devotion to things like that. And then, yeah, devotion to spirituality is going to be a big one in this particular set, I would say. Also, water is so connected to ancestry and community. Water is also really community
Yeah.
oriented. And I think Vesta could make you really invested into your community if you have a water sign, or to your ancestry and like taking care of that as well.
I see Vesta and water sign having like a top priority being empathy. Like, very obviously, why would you not be empathetic first? Like, they don't have to learn how to be empathetic. It's just natural top priority. Like, it's the first thing that they do. Whereas for some other signs, it wouldn't be necessarily the first thing they come to, but they see the importance and the value because they genuinely care about people. Whereas Vesta and water would be like, no, empathy first, all this other stuff. Achievement
It's just
is
a way
like
of
nice.
life.
It's just the way of life.
Empathy first is just a way of life.
You just exude empathy. Kayelee very well
Yeah.
exudes empathy.
It's
I
like,
don't.
oh, you just like totally pinned like my operating system to a certain extent. And I didn't even realize until you said it. Like, yeah,
Like, if you've ever taken those Clifton Strengths tests, I was like really like empathy is important. It was cognitively true, but I ended up having empathy being like 10th on my list, and I was like, "Why? I'm the most empathetic." And because I've had all this logic and achievement stuff first, then I go, "Oh, empathy is a great way to achieve something and help because I care about people." But it's not the first thing. It's just you just exude empathy. You're welcome.
here I am learning about myself. Thank you, Jaye.
Hey, you taught me about me just a minute ago. So, what is your lived experience, guys, with this? Okay, question for you. I love how Julie goes, "Oh, here we go," with her whole demeanor. Do you ever have this dooming fear that the fire is going to go out because it's fire and water, and it's like, well, I've got to drive the fire, but if I'm too caring, then it might just squish my fire.
I was actually thinking about that with some of them. I was thinking about like that might be the tender piece. It might be especially hard for water signs not to burn out like in doing some of these things. And also, I think for water signs, it's a tender spot, and being betrayed here could be really tough. Like your care being betrayed, your hope and the love that you've given. And again, similar to fire, not being appreciated for that, but it's a little bit different than fire. It's not just about being appreciated. It's, this you rejected, or you knew that I cared and you didn't care back. And that's like the big piece. Whereas I feel like fire is more like, hello, I put on this whole show for you. Look at it and look at this amazingness that you're missing. How could you miss, not appreciate all the energy I put into that? And water is more like, look at all the emotion. How could you not care back to me for all the emotion? So, yeah, I definitely think that could be the case. What do you think, Kayelee?
Yeah, I just, as you were saying that, I was like, oh, yep, yep. Looking at the experience in my life, yep, okay, yep. And it probably helps that like my Vesta is also in the fourth house. So there's this combination of creativity and spirituality and emotion, but also home and belonging. And the periods of time in my life where it felt like all that I had invested into my spiritualness, my spiritual beliefs, my spiritual being, not being shared by the people I shared my home with was like gutting in the extreme and devastating. And like the fire of hope, we've got to keep it alive in whatever desperate way we can, and resorting to desperate measures until I learned like, wait a minute, like, no, it's okay. I can keep my hope alive regardless of what is going on around me in my home or with other people's spirituality. I have to focus on mine. I have to focus on what's going on inside of me. So yeah, I relate to that a lot.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think for me, it's so interesting because it has a little bit of a different flavor, but the same. They're both in Pisces, but mine is in the fifth house, which gives like such a different flavor, I think.
Yeah.
And also that conjunction, right? That Impartide conjunction with Pallas. It has just a different, I don't know, a little bit of a different flair in that it is so much about spirituality. Obviously, I'm so devoted to this podcast and what I love it so much. Like I this is like one of the things I love the most. I love our school the most. I love teaching women about, spirituality and like exploring all these concepts and new things, and I am devoted to that. And like it is like a creative energy. Also, this is a thing too. Is like for me, if like sex is spiritual, it's like way hotter. It's so much hotter.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so much more
Yes.
sexy. And also like all of my children coming to me in kind of these spiritual way, having really big spiritual experiences with them before they came, with this like, with this being the fifth house and that housing children. But there's this, I don't know. There is this spirituality is also a creative energy force for me. And having Palace there, it almost comes off a little more fire in some of those ways. Like there's a lot more strategy. It's also my strategy, not like in a calculating strategy, but like it's my intuition and like my spiritual guidance. Like that's how I do all the things I do. Not that Kayelee isn't like that, but like that's my whole, I don't know. It's my compass. It's like that's what I'm going to come back to over and over again. Like I'm a secret artist, right? I think I do love to do things artistically, and also the secret nerdiness of me is a big thing. But I was thinking about esoterica and how that could relate to this conjunction, that
Yeah.
I'm very so into learning about the esoteric. Like that's really deep part of me and like uncovering. Anyway, so I don't know. I don't know how it shows
Pisces
up.
rules the hidden, all the hidden, the esoteric astrology. You're so committed to astrology that you're going to talk about decans.
That's right. You better believe it. I don't know enough about Pisces yet to talk about it, but one day I will. I'll talk all about the tech.
One day. Probably next week. Well, this has been such a wonderful conversation. I am proud to say that it is very long and amazing. So I am not going to be like, sorry, guys. Nope. Nope. We're not hiding our shininess, because everything we said was like super important and super powerful. And I think just having these conversations about the asteroid goddesses has just given me so much more depth, where before I was having a really hard time relating to these different, not even the goddesses, like astrology, just relating to astrology because it's all dudes. And I was like, cool, okay, cool, glad I still don't matter. But now I do.
You do. You always did.
Absolutely.
I always did. But it's nice to know. It's nice to feel that way. So I'm learning so much just by like chit chatting. It's so great. So thank you guys for being here with me on this journey. I love it. Anyways, if you loved this, let us know. We like to hear it, because we all got Vestas in our charts. So give us the love. And you be your diva selves, guys, all the days. Be your diva selves the rest of all the days. And we're really looking forward to seeing you all next week when we talk about, who are we talking about again? I'm so into
Hygeia.
conversation.
Hygeia.
Hygeia. That's right. Wash your body.
Your
Wash
body in the
hands.
interim.
Yeah, do that. Be a diva, wash your body. Have a great one. See you next time.
Thanks so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we did. Please make sure to give us a 5-star rating wherever you are listening and share with someone you know. See you next week.